Hello and welcome to Glitchy Switch, the podcast all about what it feels like discovering you have ADHD as an adult. My name is Martin and I believe that no one deserves to live in shame in a world not designed for them. So in each episode, I'll pick off the kind of questions that go through your mind on the journey from curiosity to diagnosis. Whether you're on your own journey or supporting someone who is, I hope my own experiences might just help you. I know what it's like to have a busy life and a busy mind, so each episode lasts about as long as a cup of coffee so you can easily fit it in and enjoy without draining too much energy. Before we get started, I wanted to just quickly say a really big thank you for the kind messages and comments and questions that you've sent me since I resumed making these episodes. It really is keeping me going and keeping me making them, so here we are again with another episode, and it's all thanks to you. Thank you so much. Today's question is, why can't I relax without feeling guilty? Now, if you're anything like me, the idea of downtime can be kind of stressful. The moment I sit down to relax, I find my brain going 100 miles an hour about everything I should or could be doing instead, which in turn leaves me with a whole load of guilt. So today I want to dig into, what's behind this sort of gnawing feeling when we try to rest, and then see if we can, by talking about it out loud, lance it in some kind of way. So here we go. One thing I've realised over the years is that this feeling isn't just about me being a worry guts or some overly anxious type. It's actually part of a bigger sort of cultural narrative, if you like, particularly in corporate and Western cultures, where busyness is almost a sort of badge of honour. Somehow, the more frantic we look, the more worthy we're told we must seem. I think that as someone with ADHD, when I saw everyone else maxed out all the time, it added to my sense of sort of otherness, and it made me think, well, I must be doing something wrong because I'm not stressed out or busy like everyone else who apparently seem to be working 15-hour days every day. At every step of my career, from entry level all the way kind of up the corporate ladder, I braced myself, expecting each promotion to mean, relentless work hours. But each time I moved up, I didn't find myself suddenly buried under a new workload. This constant expectation that moving up means working yourself ragged, it just kind of never happened for me, even though, that was the thing that everybody else seemed to say when they got promoted. It was like, run off my feet now kind of thing. And it got me thinking about why we hold up busyness like it's some kind of moral virtue. At school, I remember people equating worth with how much they studied rather than the actual results they achieved. I think I did about 2 hours revision for my physics GCSE many, many years ago and felt I was across it, whilst a school friend at the time seemed to find sufficient virtue in putting in double digits of hours of revision to talk down to me about my chances. Despite all this virtue through busyness drive definitely shapes the ADHD experience. I've always felt that work is sort of on or off. It's rare to feel steady and just sort of okay in the middle if you're me. People who can balance that middle ground absolutely amaze me. But if you've spent your life feeling a bit odd or less than and with a sense of needing to fit in, then noticing that you're not as apparently permanently maxed as everyone else at least says they are, makes you wonder if you're actually sort of fundamentally lazy and getting away with it or sort of slacking off. ADHD makes you have a general sense of if something's up, it's probably an issue with you. Until I got diagnosed with ADHD, I was too frightened always to tell people my working pattern when doing desk work. Well, that sort of means when I'm not in meetings, which is to work in very, very short sprints of activity. I mean, like sort of maybe as short as 5 to 10 minute bursts. If you were to measure my activity on a graph, it would look like a very steep saw. At the end of the period of time, say an hour, I'll have still done a lot, but I can't sit and steadily, sit and write a document sentence after sentence after sentence. I have to stop, do something else for a few seconds, and then come back and do another spurt. Now, that kind of seems odd to do it in a sort of compulsive way. So I've never really told many people about that before. So congratulations. You're part of me telling the world. And the irony is, if I stop and look at what I've achieved in a day, it's usually a lot, probably more than many others would think to even try and fit in. And I'm not saying that as a boastful thing. And again, without wishing to be sort of that guy again, I do genuinely get people comment on it like I'm sort of an outlier in a positive direction. But, and here's the thing, in my mind, I always feel like I haven't done enough. And this kind of fear of being a slacker, like I'm going to get found out at some point, always looms large. Like if I don't work non-stop, I'll end up as some failure and lose everything I've sort of worked hard to build. I think I also take things very literally, which I think might be a neurodivergent thing as well. If I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. When I was very young at school, kids would, like kids do, would say they were going to do all sorts of things, or they were going to get this for Christmas and that for their birthday and various other things. But I would only ever say something if I genuinely was sure it was going to happen. And I remember being, even young, being like really confused about kind of how they could live like it. Like, how can you say these things and it not happen? And I would take it very literally. Like someone would say they were going to get something or do something, and then I would ask about it, and they would go, oh no, I didn't do that in the end. And they would do it enough times that you'd sort of think, well, don't you care? I just found it completely bewildering. Something else that stands out to me is how ADHD brains thrive on structure. If you take a packed diary, for instance, there's something about going from meeting to meeting, each with a defined purpose, that feels like the day has kind of taken care of itself. There's not a lot of planning or prioritising you need to do. You just kind of keep moving, really. But when I see a big blank space in my schedule, my brain just goes into overdrive. One part of me thinks, well, that's good. I can have some focus time and actually do some work. While the other just completely panics at the unstructured time ahead and can't figure out what to do for the best. It's like this blank slate almost demands justification for whatever I'm going to fill it with. The thought that I would use any of that to, regroup or, dare I say it, just coast for a bit, it just horrifies me. The dominant thought is, oh my God, I've got free time. I'm going to have to justify it as productive and show some output for it, which is a kind of a healthy thing on one level, but I do know I'm over the top about it. And I know that I usually make the right calls more often than not. So it's not like I'm frightened I'm going to get it wrong, but I just find it really kind of anxiety inducing. I get through it without anyone knowing, I think, most of the time, but it burns like so many mental calories. It's unbelievable. And relaxing, forget it. Rest almost feels like something I have to earn. I'm getting better, and I do put rest times in my schedule, but the guilt is still there, sort of nagging away, like I'm not really allowed to take a break whilst everyone else is working away. At home, outside work, I am definitely getting better and feeling a lot less anxiety about, not having something to do and just kind of being for a bit and pottering. But it's still hard at times. And I think there's also a physical side to this. For ADHD brains, which they say have lower levels of dopamine, I keep saying they say because I'm not a scientist and I'd probably forget all the science before I got to it. But we simply get less reward from just sitting relaxing, right? And so while I know that I need to rest because I'm feeling, mentally exhausted, especially if I've been sort of hyper-focused in something or switching between tasks or actually around people for a long while, much as I enjoy it, I still feel bored and very, very anxious that I'm slacking and going to get shouted at or told off or something like that. It's a strange combination. It's like being both completely exhausted and completely restless all at the same time. There's this energy in my head to do something and to feel bad about not doing something, even if I'm too tired to move. So relaxing is obviously important. And with diagnosis, I think it's become easier for me to justify rest. I can see it as something I need, and I'm learning to give myself that permission. I'm not quite there. I still tend to overcommit and keep myself maxed out, but now I'm determined and motivated to live authentically, even if I'm still feeling, that urge to pull a mask on or overly kind of prove myself, as we've talked about before. This idea of enoughness, that I am enough without adding more, is starting to become a little bit more sort of real, at least. And it's worth noting that relaxation doesn't necessarily mean doing nothing. I've found that what recharges me isn't just stopping, but doing something low-key and enjoyable, but somehow sort of productive as well. So flipping through my record collection, doing some cosmetic DIY, and hey, this is really niche, I've got into watching car body repair videos on YouTube. Now, it's funny, but watching rust get cut out, replacement panels fabricated, welded, and then, filled and painted, it's the most absorbing, calming thing. It's better than any meditation app I've ever done. I don't know if it's because as a kid I wanted to be a mechanic, but there's something about seeing sort of cars restored that just feels really satisfying. I've checked the comments actually, and I've noticed on more than one occasion that someone has commented that they also have ADHD and find the videos extremely calming too. So, maybe it's not just me that has this fixation about car body repairs. So, anyway, so if you found yourself sitting down ready to relax only to feel that guilt creeping in, try and remember you're stopping because you need to. It's a necessity, especially for those of us with ADHD. We're playing this game on hard, right? This is about recharging for whatever comes next, whether that's a new project or actually simply just being your best self. We're in a culture that's set up to glorify busyness, but what's the real gain in being constantly maxed out if you don't need to? So you can humble brag on LinkedIn or Virtue Signal in the office. Rest, I'm coming to learn, and I realise that I'm probably the last person that should be lecturing anybody on any of this stuff, but rest can actually be one of the best ways for us to do our best work and be our best selves. So I'm trying my level best to try and learn that lesson. Anyway, another freewheeling episode for you. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts and about your experiences too, so please do hit me up in the comments or send me a message, and I would absolutely love to see you next time. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. You can get in touch via glitchyswitchpodcast@gmail.com with your thoughts and suggestions of things you'd like to hear about. You can also follow me on @glitchyswitchpodcast on Instagram for more on ADHD life and to find out what's coming next.